Let's talk about accessibility options in card games. Over the years, TCGs have grown and have gained a lot more popularity in the mainstream. I myself, as an enjoyer of multiple TCGs, have found this to be a very good thing. And as the years have gone by, TCGs have become a little more accessible in the way that you're able to play them. You can grab yourself some cards, build some decks, and then take them to your locals and other competitions to compete in. Or you can go the other route of accessing a game without having to leave your home. This is something that has become more common as more TCGs have tried to make the jump to digital for easier accessibility and getting more people into their respective games. During the short time period that I was off YouTube for a bit and just offline in general, I said I was sorry already. I was on the locals grind, attending weekly tournaments, playing casually and competitively as I was learning to be more meta and competitive, and during this time period, I began building a number of decks for both Yu-Gi-Oh! And Digimon. These decks would be tweaked and changed as the meta shifted because that's just how it goes. During this time period, I would carefully organize my decks and other supplies carefully because in my experience of being a TCG player, I know it can get a little hectic. It's also during this time that I would begin playing a lot of Master Duel again because I just wanted to keep my mind sharp. It sounds weird, I know, but it makes sense to me. I would sit and grind Master Duel for long periods to just play the game. Similarly, in Master Duel, I've built a various number of decks, some which I've showcased on this very channel. This all got me thinking of the different ways we choose to enjoy the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Or whatever other game that you play. What's goody with you all today? My name is RayGVT, and today I want to talk about digital versus physical card games, the pros and cons of each, and accessibility when it comes to enjoying some of our favorite card games. Let's begin. Let's start by looking at the physical side first. In my own headquarters, I have quite the number of physical cards from various TCGs. Thousands of them, and I keep them all in big bulk boxes. I arrange them in binders and deck boxes, and I try my best to keep them organized as neatly as possible, as much as I possibly can. Because if I'm ever looking for a specific card, I have to look for it amongst my gigantic collection. I keep my bulk boxes in order of sets, so if I'm not sure, I can just look up what set the card is from and then head to that section of my collection. I've also got multiple binders that I store specific cards in, such as a Staples binder, a binder just for show that I keep all my valuable cards in, and a binder for all the cards that I'm selling, and just a general binder for stuff that I just like. As I began creating more Yu-Gi-Oh! And just general TCG content on both of my platforms, my collection has grown naturally over time, especially as I've played the game more at locals and other competitions. This collection is not easy to maintain in a neat and organized way, and that's where we enter our first con of the conversation: storage. Storage is such a huge factor when it comes to playing physical TCGs. The cards themselves, where you're gonna keep those cards, buying things like bulk boxes and deck boxes, not to mention all the other extra stuff like binders, sleeves, playmats, and all of that stuff. Storage is always the first thing that I always recommend to sort out properly to anyone who's looking to get into TCGs. It's very easy for things to get out of control very quickly and for stuff to just be everywhere, which can make it extremely difficult when you're looking for a specific card or a set of cards. I cannot tell you the amount of times that I've been looking for a specific card among my collection, won't be able to find it, but I know that I definitely have it in my collection. So you know what I'll do? I'll just opt to buy another copy of the card online, only for the same card to turn up when I'm not looking for it, and before I know it, I have like 5 copies of the card that I was looking for. Let me know if you can relate, but storage is not a fun thing to deal with, even in smaller collections. This is a problem that gets bigger as your collection grows. The bigger the collection, the bigger the hassle. The amount of times that I've done and finished box openings on my channels and afterwards just immediately dreaded the battle of putting them all away neatly and in an organized way is a feeling that I've become all too familiar with. Sometimes you just want to get straight into the game with your friends and just go without the hassle. I recommend that if you can, keep your collection as lean as possible. Sell bulk cards or just put them all in a dedicated area to make your life easier. Keep important stuff like staples and other important cards in their own dedicated binders so that they're easier to find. Now on the flip side, let's look at digital, where this problem is non-existent and is completely mitigated by it being, well, digital. There is no storage hassle. Even in the games themselves, everything is sorted for you. You build a deck and it's put in its own deck box that you save. If you have a bunch of cards collected, you can filter all of them to be arranged how you want if you're looking for something specific. This alone can be a reason for people to play digital over physical. The struggle to maintain everything isn't there, and that's a good thing and a pro of digital compared to physical. Moving on to the next thing, let's talk about time and how long it takes to get into the game and actually play the game. In physical Yu-Gi-Oh, once everything is set up and ready to go, you can just hop into games and play against other people. But let's talk about some of the things that you might have to get through first. Things like time and travel, the latter being something that's an exclusive problem to the physical side of things, can be a real issue sometimes. For a lot of people, sometimes their closest locals isn't so close, or it's like an hour plus of travel that they have to do, and then once they're there, you usually have to sit through a number of rounds and wait in between those rounds for the next one to start. Or you can have the opposite happen, where you can get everything sorted and travel to your locals only to go X2 and that's your tourney run pretty much over. This problem only gets bigger with the larger the competition. If you're attending something like a regionals or a YCS or any other tournament for your game, you may have to take into account stuff like flights or fuel. For some people, the amount of actual Yu-Gi-Oh you actually get to play relative to the amount of time spent to get everything ready and sorted, like storage and time, is usually not worth it. Let's go to digital now, where this issue is extremely easy to take care of and manage. In games like Master Duel and, well, most other digital games, it's extremely easy to build your deck and just hop into games extremely easily. If you win a game, great, you can just hop into another one straight away. If you lose, that's fine too, you can just hop into another one within seconds with zero issues. It's why I enjoy Master Duel grind streams so much, because I have so many games in such a short space of time compared to if I was playing them physically. Back when I first started covering Yu-Gi-Oh and TCG content on my streams, Duel Links was my go-to game before Master Duel came along. This game basically built my channel back in the day, and the amount of games that I was able to have in the duration of my streams was so good, and it's something that I wouldn't have been able to have if I were playing physically. Even when playing with other people physically over the net via remote duels and such during the virus era, it's something that you still have to go through the trouble of setting up and being good to go, and you have even more things to worry about. Back when competitions were being ran over stream, it was very easy for things to go wrong. Though this isn't as big an issue anymore, it looks like they're trying to use the digital front to run major competitions now, like in the recent Duel Links and Master Duel Worlds campaign that happened. This is really cool and could change how games are handled in the competitive sense. What makes all of this even better is that all your content is synced across all of your platforms, in the case of the Yu-Gi-Oh games anyway. It's so easy to have a play session of Duel Links or Master Duel on my PC and then continue my progress on the go as I travel. Now, let's talk about what may just be the biggest barrier to people on the physical front, and that's cost. Oh boy. Cost is something notable to consider before getting into TCGs. I said it before in my previous video on structure decks, but all a TCG player wants is to be able to access the cards that they need as easily as possible. This includes not just where to get them, but how much they'll need, because let's face it, if you're looking to play any game beyond just the casual level, you're gonna have to shell out for the extra cards and meta staples that you may need to get things done. The TCG price market is constantly shifting, especially in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! So players have to be smart if they want anything specific that they might be looking for. The price of sealed products too is something to consider. As someone with a large physical collection, I can tell you that this ain't cheap. Every time a new set comes out, I'll make sure that I get at least one booster just so I can check it out and see the new stuff. This problem used to be huge back when I used to play and try multiple games, and it didn't help that most games would all have new sets coming out within very short windows of each other. One week would be the new Yu-Gi-Oh! And Vanguard sets, and then Digimon would be out the following week, and it was extremely hard to keep up sometimes. This problem is definitely huge if you play multiple games, which is why I limit myself to no more than 3 TCGs these days, and even that's kind of pushing it for me. I used to do a lot of unboxings and pack opening streams, and let me tell you honestly, this stuff was not cheap. Again, this is another reason why I focus solely on just covering one game on my channels now, because I realize that this is just not very cost effective to keep going for me. Not just as a content creator, but as a genuine player of multiple games. Unless I'm filthy rich and rolling in it, which I'm definitely not. Whether you're just a collector or looking to actually play your game of choice, consider the cost and budget according to what's appropriate for you. Keeping up with new sets and constant shifting metas can get pretty hard sometimes. And just as a word of advice to anyone who may watch their favorite creators unboxing stuff and getting all the cool hype pulls and wanting to start doing the same, consider the cost. Things aren't always as they seem. For every god pack and blessed box, there's usually a ton of dud packs that you don't see your favorite creator go through. I don't say this to deter anyone from something that they might enjoy, but I say this as someone that's been deeply invested themselves and hasn't seen as much equal return. Consider the cost. Now, let's once again head to digital, where this problem is handled much better, but also worse at the same time. Let's get into all of this. Now, most card game sims are usually free to play and pick up with no monetary barrier. Most games. Sure, there are a few titles in the space that you have to pay for, but this is usually a one-time payment and you get all of the content in the game for free through various updates. Again, most of the time. It's a great thing that the big main sims currently like Master Duel, Duel Links, Magic the Gathering Arena, and Shadowverse are all free to play and give you access to the entire card pool via in-game mechanics such as unlocks and general grinding. So where's the issue? The problem is in how some of these games are monetized. Because of the nature of free-to-play games, these games usually run on paid currency in-game. Things like gems in Master Duel and Duel Links are things that are very valuable and usually aren't a problem to get if you're willing to sit down and put in the hours to grind. Or you can just bypass all of that by flashing your forbidden card to the game and purchasing said gems by yourself. In the case of Duel Links, this game is extremely gacha and almost predatory in how it used to handle this, and still kinda is, which is why I don't play it as much anymore. You could be short a few gems, and until you get them, you're out of luck. And because of the nature of gacha mechanics and just stuff like microtransactions and stuff, these games also utilize familiar tactics like how they price gem packs to be just the right amount so that you're still just a little short even after you buy them, to try to encourage you to buy even more. If you're someone who doesn't have stuff like this under control or aren't aware for these types of things, you have to again consider the cost. Just a quick side note too, this is also the main reason why I haven't put out as many Master Duel archetype highlight vids as I used to. I just don't spend money on these games anymore, which makes it hard to pull and craft cards that I need. An unfortunate side effect of not throwing money at my problems. Now, for the titles that you do have to pay for, this is usually fine because again, you pay for it once and all the content is yours. This is for games like Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duel and Legacy of the Duelist, as well as other games like Shadowverse Champions Battle, the latter having some optional paid DLC available. You have all access to everything via in-game mechanics like mentioned before. So yes, the argument can be made that you're spending less on this than you would if you bought the cards physically. But what about when this isn't the case? Yep, okay, I'm gonna go there. I have a special bone to pick with this game in particular. Cardfight Vanguard Dear Days, or as I like to call it, Cardfight Vanguard Oh Dear Days, is a game that released in November last year, and this game was supposed to be it for Vanguard players and for people who are looking to enter the game without investing in the already expensive as heck TCG. This game released at full price, costing even more than the biggest AAA games on the blocks at the time, like God of War and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, before we knew how that game would turn out. Man, I was so excited to play this game, but when I heard the news on how much the game would cost, all that hype just painfully died. I was only able to purchase this game very recently because I had a number of Nintendo points racked up, which helped bring the game down in price a bit. This game also rarely goes on sale too, and when it does, it's usually not by much. What made all of this even worse was the cost of the DLC packs being priced at the same full price of the game itself. This is actual robbery and is borderline evil. Yes, you could pay for the packs individually, but it works out to be even more than just getting the sets as a whole. You're better off just buying booster sets at this point because it works out to be cheaper. What? I actually wanted to make a review video of the game back at launch, but the price really threw me off and just took me out of the game completely. I still want to do a video on this game as someone that wanted to get into the game properly, because the Vanguard TCG cards themselves are not easily accessible where I am, and it's very hard to get singles outside of sealed products, so this was my way out. But yeah, expect that video sometime in the near future because I only just got my hands on the game this month and I want to give it a genuine shot. price barrier aside. But rants aside, this is a good example of how not to handle digital games. Now, I know so far it sounds like I've mainly just talked about the negative things of physical Yu-Gi-Oh! And TCGs, but let me look at the actual positives, because there's a lot of them too that you just can't get on the digital side. Despite everything that I said about maintaining a physical TCG collection, it's really nice and really cool having a physical collection that you can see and feel. Even for people who purely collect and don't play, this is a really good thing to be able to look at and just admire. It's really cool having some of my favorite cards on display from different TCGs and just collecting cards that I think are really pretty. Dragon Ball Super TCG, as much as I don't play it, is still my favorite card game to purely collect because the card art is insanely cool, as I've mentioned before. Also, just a quick side note, this game is also getting a digital sim in the future, so I'm looking forward to that. Just please be accessible. The social aspect of TCGs is also one that I love and wouldn't trade for anything else. Getting to see friends, meet new people, and just talk about and share your passions of the games that you love is a feeling that I wouldn't ever want to get rid of. This isn't something that you can really get on the digital front because you usually play these games alone in your home and stuff. That's not to say that it's bad or anything. I've said it before, but I've met so many cool people in my community through the game that I love the most, and it's been great. But having this experience in person is just something I adore a lot, and is something I just can't get playing Master Duel unless I'm live streaming my experience. Having the cards in my hands, looking at the pretty art and shuffling, talking to my opponent across the table and interacting, nothing beats it. Now, this can be a good and bad experience, but I've had more good than anything. As much of a hassle as playing physical Yu-Gi-Oh! And other games can be, I still would do it 100 times a week if it meant keeping these things that I love and value. And just going outside in general is always a good thing. I also want to touch real quick on the topic of presentation. Digital games have the advantage and freedom of looking very pretty. Seeing the special summon animations in Master Duel never gets old, and heck, for as much as I've talked about it, Vanguard Deer Days has some pretty clean presentation too. And beyond that, the UI and user experience is always very nice, with the game telling you what you can and can't do and automates everything for you to be very simple. You don't have this in physical, but that's not really an issue for me. If anything, it helps keep me more attentive to the game and what I can and can't do. In short, it helps me get good because this stuff isn't done for me and I have to learn myself. In conclusion, digital and physical TCGs usually require you to take very different approaches to each field. It's really up to you what you want to play and how you want to play it. And with even more games now receiving their own digital sims, such as the aforementioned DBS card game, there's more ways for how you can access your favorite game. Now, I'm just hoping we get an announcement for the Digimon digital card game sometime soon, because that's literally all I want and I'll be set. Anyways guys, I hope this vid has helped you consider some things when it comes to picking how you want to play your card games, and I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I did making it. How do you prefer to play your card games? Physical or digital? Let me know. I'm definitely more of a physical games kind of person, but I have a lot of appreciation for the digital side of things too. Thanks again for watching guys, and I will see you in the duel arena.